to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. Today, I am your host, Diana Perry-Cruz, and with me is my humble host,
Jackie McDonald.
Yay!
Girls Edition.
It's a girls edition today. Aren't you lucky? You get to be here with me and Jackie, and we're going to talk all about our Listener Choice Awards episode, legislative policy in behavior analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I was interested in because at one point in my life, I was on the Massachusetts Public Policy Committee, and I had no idea what anyone was talking about. And so that is why I wanted to read some research around this topic.
Well, I'm sure you learned a lot through that process.
I did. Yes, I did. But I wanted to see, what the research out there was surrounding legislation, because it impacts our whole lives.
Yeah.
In our profession. I never really realized that. I was like, why are they complaining? And now I know.
Yeah, there's actually like quite a lot to know.
Yeah.
And unless you have delved into it yourself, you might not know. So that's why we're going to talk about it today. And in case this is the first episode you've ever come to, this is a podcast where we talk about research in the behavior and analytic field.
Yeah.
Yep.
Diana.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us what articles we're going to talk about today?
I sure do.
There are two.
There are two articles that we will be discussing today, and they include The Road to Licensure of Behavior Analysts in Texas, History and Lessons Learned. That was written by Dela Cruz, Bourland, Johnson, Pedagog, Dylan, Tommen, Fritz, and Crone, and published in Behavior Analysis and Practice 2025. Also, we have a behavior analyst licensure law. Can't we relax now? Which is a great title.
It is. I feel like that. I'm like, whoa, we did it.
I know. That was written by Bourland, Wilczynski, Guercio, Scibak, and Gautreaux. And that was also published in Behavior Analysis and Practice, also in the year 2025. So these are recent articles, but they're going to take us back sort of through the process of licensure for behavior analysis, which is a relatively short history, to be honest with you.
Yes, very short.
And then bring us up to speed on where we are today. We've never talked about this topic before.
No.
So it's pretty exciting.
It's new.
It's pretty, if you love legislative policy, if you love rules and regulations, if you love the government, then you're going to love this episode.
Diana hates all of those things. I actually love all those things except for the government. But I never really fully understood why we needed licensure because we had certification.
Right.
Until, even in that meeting, I still didn't understand until I read these two articles.
So can I ask, how did you get involved?
In that
yeah. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about like general state of affairs?
Oh, yeah, we can talk about that. So I got involved in that committee because it was 2017, and I had recently opened up the Regis Autism Center at Regis College in Weston, Massachusetts, where I work, and that was just part of my service. I was
not.
This
is like a great place to work.
I know, it really
and go
is.
to school.
Yes, you could get a master's there in applied behavior analysis. But that was just my service. I wasn't getting paid to do that, and I joined that committee because I had no idea how to deal with insurance.
Yes,
and I almost committed many crimes because I didn't know you can't ask other agencies how much they get. Yeah. And so I was rules. Like, oh, there's so many rules. I should probably join a committee. And so I joined that committee that did insurance and legislative reform to figure out what I was doing wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
When did you ever do this? I don't really know this about you.
Right. Well, I have been on the Birth to 22 Autism Committee for Massachusetts that oversees like those types of regulations for a long time, and I learned a lot through that process. Are you still in that? I don't attend the meetings, so
technically yes, but no.
But then, you and I obviously are Bill Ahearn's students, and so we were in very close proximity to Bill while he was involved in the Massachusetts licensure road, I guess. It's a long road.
It's a very long road.
So we heard a lot about this process through him during that time. He was, working closely with Representative Scibak to get Massachusetts licensure up and running. And there were a lot of sort of peaks and valleys through that process. He would update us regularly. He would update the Babbitt membership. Remember Babbitt number 1?
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember?
I do. Mm-hmm. The Mary Martha Chapel. You're right.
It's the Wayside Inn. Okay.
The Wayside Inn. Yes.
Okay. So if you remember the very first
yes.
Babbitt social.
It was at the Wayside Inn.
The social is the part I left out.
Yes,
the important part of that story. Yes, it was at the Wayside Inn. It was in like a little room in the top of the Wayside Inn.
Yep,
it was
and you had to scale around and go up the creaky, narrow stairs. And people say that the Wayside Inn is haunted.
Well,
I agree with them.
You don't even need to believe in ghosts to see that the Wayside Inn is haunted.
Yes, I agree. I'm like,
it's quite obviously haunted.
Yes.
Yeah, so that room sat like 60 people, and that was the very first Babbitt social, and there was only one speaker during that event, and it was Bill Ahearn, and he gave us an update on the state of the Massachusetts licensure.
I remember that.
You remember that now?
I sat in the third row.
I don't remember where I sat, but I remember being there. So we have been sort of there like through this process and followed it pretty closely, although it is hella confusing.
Yes, 100%.
Yes, and it's different in every state, which I think we will end up talking about as well.
Right. And so for Massachusetts, we were the first state to have legislation drafted, not approved.
But not approved.
Right. Legislation drafted in 2006. And we had some of the same issues that other states had about other fields trying to want to govern us. And we'll talk about that a little bit in another thing. But as far as Massachusetts behavior analyst, in order to be licensed, you need to have BCBA certification. And then you submit your application to the Board of Registration of Allied Mental Health and Human Service Professions. And they govern licensure in behavioral analysis, educational psychology, marriage and family therapy, mental health counseling, and rehabilitation counseling. And on that board specifically, we have 3 behavior analysts, one of which is Bill Ahearn.
Yeah.
So it's nice that we have a seat at the table, right?
Oh, yeah.
When we're looking at the applications.
But you can tell that it wasn't like behavior analyst didn't like make it because it says behavioral analysis.
Right, yeah, 100%. I was
right
going to say that too. You're like, whoop.
Right there in the title. It's a dead giveaway.
Whoops, someone screwed up. But in Massachusetts, we didn't have licensing until 2013.
Right. So they started this process in 2006. It didn't come through until 2013. So that gives you an indication of like how long the process takes. But many states have been steadfastly working towards this goal over the last, let's say, 15 years.
Yeah.
And so at this point, 40 states plus the DC area have licensure for behavior analysts. So that only means that there are 10 states that don't. And I'll tell you what those are right now in case you are curious. California, Idaho, New Mexico, Florida, South Carolina, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Hampshire, and Maine. The only states that do not currently have licensure for behavior analysts.
We should make one of those like elementary school songs about them.
You could.
And then we could go to that state and just taunt them. Like, you don't have licensure. Just kidding.
Well, some of them it's in the works, but as we know, it's a kind of a long process. So the first that actually succeeded in getting licensure for their states were Oklahoma and Nevada. And that was in 2009. So maybe it was just like a smooth sailing process.
Yeah, they were great. I guess there was one guy in Oklahoma that I was an active behavior analyst. I have his name somewhere in my notes, but he like spearheaded licensure in Oklahoma and like got it through very quickly.
Impressive.
I mean, probably not quickly to his account, right? It probably took a lot longer than he wanted it to, but overall quickly related to licensure.
Yeah. And then the most recent was Colorado, and that was this year.
Go Colorado.
Yeah. And these data are coming from the BACB website, so you can look that up over there. And they have a cool map as well that shows you all the states and when they received licensure. And then it also has a link below, not below here, below the map on their website to each state's licensing body and their state ABA association.
That's actually very helpful in case you're going to move states.
Yes, right? Absolutely. It's very helpful because you need to know, does that state have licensure, require licensure? Is what I already have going to transfer over? And guess what? It varies.
It does. It really
varies all over the place. And then you might wonder, well, why would the state ABA association be listed there?
Because they're going to help you.
Yeah.
They're going to help you a lot. Like, they're the people that you need to talk to if things go awry.
That's right. They're the ones who need to know
Right, when things go awry.
Just making sure I was actually recording.
Oh, good. That's smart.
Yep. We're doing it.
I feel Rob's stress right now.
We're killing it. Okay. Yes. So I thought that it might make sense for us to talk about what some of the advantages and, I don't want to say disadvantages, but like the complications that come from licensure generally. And then we can delve a little more deeply into what our 2 articles had to say.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
What do you think?
I think that sounds perfect.
Okay. Sounds good. And what do you think are some of the advantages?
Advantages of licensure, I think, is that, the article said that licensure is important for the protection and the safety of clients as well as behavior analysts, because in states with no licensure, individuals who are not certified by the certifying entity can generally practice ABA and call themselves behavior analysts with no oversight or consequences for unethical conduct. And if you have your license or your certification revoked by the BACB, you can actually still practice in that state and just not call yourself a certified behavior analyst, right? So the licensure laws protect behavior analysts. They protect the field of behavior analysts. And then, right, if something goes awry and someone is acting unethical, we have someone to report to, and then they can take action. Because the BACB, all their recourses is that then, if it's not like a federal offense or a state offense, all they can do is revoke your certification. Right. And that's a lot, but not a lot when it comes to unethical conduct. So that's a benefit of licensure, I think, is that it gives us extra protection, gives the behavior analyst extra protection, but also gives the field extra protection from people outside of our field trying to be us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like our field is a little different, I think, because we sort of rely on certification, and like that's basically how we have structured our whole field. And licensure is now like added on top of the certification, and that's kind of different, right?
It is.
Because for us, we're BCBA, man. Like that means a lot, and it does mean a lot.
It does
It's
mean
not
a lot.
easy to get that certification,
right?
But if you were in a different field, you'd be like, well, I am certified in lawn mowing, right? I'm certified in cake decor. I don't know what it might be, right? And you're like, well, I had to do work to get that certification.
Right.
But there's fewer regulations, generally speaking, with regard to certification versus licensure.
Right.
And so this adds another layer onto sort of the professional credibility that we have as a field when we can now say that we are licensed by a particular state and governing body, right? Which is way different than certification from a board.
Yes.
Both are important.
Right.
And we happen to have a certifying board that is extremely serious about the qualifications required to get that certification. But that's sort of a self-regulation, right? Rather than a state regulation. And so I think that is somewhat of the differential there.
They also said that when you have licensure, one of the articles said that if you have licensure, it establishes you as a highly professional, distinct field versus just your certification. That the license, like doctors have to be licensed, right? So it gives us our own a little more street cred, and it certifies us as a specialized profession.
Yeah, and it's the way that our field did that because we had certification first and the licensure came after. Yeah. So a lot of states, they say, well, you can be licensed in this state if you are certified. Right. So once again, it's sort of like a different structure, but that also allows for more, symmetry across the states too, because they're all relying, or most of the time, the qualifications are that you are certified as a behavior analyst, and then therefore you can then apply for licensure within the state.
And sometimes you have to do extra things. Like in our state, you have to do a training on mandated reporting, sexual violence, and cultural responsiveness, right? But other states might not have that type of training.
Yes,
in order to get licensure.
But you should check.
Yeah.
And then New York has its own set of...
No, New York is its own beast. We're not even going to talk about New York. They should write a paper on New York licensure.
Yeah, we didn't find that one.
No.
Maybe, I think there's hope that they may be simplifying it, so maybe they don't want to write a paper yet.
It's too complicated.
I was going to give this quote from Bourland, but I think you summarized it for us. Let's see. Did you say all this already? Yeah. Outside behavior analyst licensure law? BACB sort of certificates have no legally protected right to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. And so we maybe hadn't thought about those things before. So the thesis of this entire episode is going to be, one should know what the rules and regulations are in your state that have to do with licensure, if you are in a state that license behavior analysts, and don't just assume everything's going to be fine and hunky-dory. Someone needs to be checking in on this situation on the reg to make sure that everything continues going to the advantage of both behavior analysts and the clients that they serve.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to start talking about my article first. And I find this article is a really helpful one for behavior analysts that have no history with legislation, because it tells you all of the challenges and how long it took for Texas to get licensure, even though they started talking about licensure in the 1990s.
Dang.
Right? Like, some of you guys even weren't born yet. And they were talking about licensure, right? But and so that's really helpful, because I remember saying, well, why don't they just get licensure?
Yeah.
Right? Like, they can just draft a bill. We all listen to Schoolhouse Rocks.
Right.
And it's very much more complicated than that. And so Texas was the 30th state to establish licensure law, right? And I'm going to be talking about the Daylight Cruise and Alt article.
Yeah.
And
I love it. I love an article that's set up like a story.
Yeah, this one is 100% a story, right? And so TexABA is their state organization, which we love. Hey, TexABA, invite us to the conference again. It was so fun. They were established in 1985, and the BACB was established in 1998. I love it when a state organization beats the BACB.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so remember, the BACB was established for certification to set a very minimal standard for BCBAs, right? And remember that they're independent. They're international, kind of, now. Not quite international. They have Canada.
Yes.
But
it is therefore international.
Okay, you're right, I guess. And they're nonprofit credentialing. So they don't have any stake in states, but they're willing to help out, right? And so in the 1990s, there were concerns that arose in the field of behavior analysis because there was what is called a sunset review in 1992. I did not know about this.
I didn't either.
Right? And there
but
were
I
both
do now.
articles. Yeah. And this was a review of the Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists. So this review board is a government entity looking to see if there is expansion needed or if they have to change things related to professionals and governing in the field. And they were considering putting behavior analysis under psychology. And behavior analysts did not want to be governed by psychologists for many reasons, right? I think that the biggest two reasons are, number one, in psychology, you need to have a doctorate in order to practice independently.
Yeah.
And many behavior analysts do not have a doctorate, right? Like all of the board certified behavior analysts that are working at schools have only a master's degree. And second, many psychologists don't have training in behavior analysis. So they would be supervising someone that they don't have any knowledge around, right?
It's true.
So those are like pretty big concerns, right? And so TexABA worked with ABAI and asked for behavior analysis not to be included under this supervision because it made BCBAs really uncomfortable. And it actually, behavior analysis did fall under psychology in the 90s, but they never did anything about it. So they were always worried that it was coming down the line that psychologists would be supervising them, but it didn't. So it happened again in the 2000s. The Sunset Committee met again, and everyone was really worried. TexABA was monitoring the legislative efforts at this time, but not doing anything. In 2003, it happened again. So it just keeps happening.
Oh, my goodness.
And they're like, okay. But at this time, again, everyone's just a little worried. We're keeping very close eye on legislative efforts to make sure that no one comes in and says that psychologists have to supervise them. And then in 2009, they started active discussions about licensure in Texas because now they're very uncomfortable because it's been multiple years now that they come back with this sunset through. But the biggest challenge here was that nobody knew how to propose a legislative bill.
Sure.
Right? Because we're not that.
Right.
So
we're not that.
We're not that. We don't do that. And so they appointed a task force to explore licensure in Texas. Space Force. They had 7 behavior analysts in Texas that were actively practicing. They may have taught part-time, but that wasn't their role, right? And the group examined general pros and cons of licensing, the value, the practicality of establishing licensure in Texas, what happened with licensure in other states, and recommended what it should be relevant to Texans, right? And remember, we're in Texas. And so
I'm ready. I'm in the land of lean beef.
One of the other big challenges they faced is Texas is generally conservative, fiscally conservative, right? And so in this way, a licensing board may cost money. And so it's going to be hard to get that through, especially during these years where there wasn't a lot of money coming through. So that was also a problem. Yeah, they surveyed behavior analysts around Texas. Everyone really wanted licensure. They thought it would help them. In 2010.
Once you introduce the idea of this is an added protection.
Right. You're like,
oh yes, I do. Right? I do want that, please. I do want that.
Yeah. In 2010, TexABA had their conference all around licensure. It was the hot topic. They had, I like this, they had a presentation entitled Reflections on Licensure of Behavior Analysis. Michael Dorsey, who spearheaded the Massachusetts legislation, was there, and Thomas Evans, he was the behavior analyst in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
That played a critical role in the established. So they had a lively discussion, and everyone was really excited. The task force said, yes, everyone wants this.
We vote yes.
And so here's where they're like, we're going to do it. In 2011 and 2013 legislative sessions, we were eyeing up all the legislative efforts. Well, we weren't, but TexABA was, and advocating for behavior analysis because they were worried that someone other than a behavior analyst would put forth a bill, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Right? In 2011, a senator drew up a bill for licensure because his kids benefited from ABA, so he came from a good place.
Yeah.
But it was not in line with the BACB licensure model, and TexABA said this: we are concerned that the enactment of legislation establishing a behavior analysis licensing authority at present would increase the likelihood of it being placed under the aegis and authority that is not independent of other professions, would run the risk of minimizing the likelihood of realizing the intended benefits of licensing behavior analysts. So they're like, we're worried that you're going to stick us under psychology because we have no money. Right? So they drafted a bill to counter that bill, and it incorporated all of the things that the BACB said, but then it was never distributed because that bill went nowhere. So they drafted something, and it didn't go anywhere. Right? And then they met with the Psychological Association Governing Board and said, hey, we don't want to step on your toes. Of course we don't. We just want to be our own thing. And they agreed. But then they sent a flyer out. I would have loved to see this flyer. They sent a flyer out to all of their psychologists saying, if you have not become a member, please become a member and donate because behavior analysis is trying to take over our field.
Oh my God.
So that happened. So they're like, why are you? So then we had a little bit of a fight between psychology and behavior analysis. And while I was reading this, I was thinking, psychology doesn't even like us. Why do they want to govern us? I know. Money. So.
No comment.
I know. So then they hired a lobbyist. They gave her name. I can't remember. They're like, and we hired this lobbyist. Her name is.
You kind of need a lobbyist.
Colleen, I think her name is. And she said in 2012, if they sent the bill forth, it would not get approved because there was no money. So in 2013, we're still going.
Yeah.
Right? They did not introduce the same bill because no one else brought another bill up. So they're just, in 2015, TexABA made an entire committee that was an independent nonprofit organization to then, their main purpose was to establish licensure. Right? And it didn't happen. It didn't happen in 2015. They had so many things.
We're almost up to the present day.
I know.
We're about to run out of time.
I know. So the biggest thing here is they found a Representative Ron Simmons, to champion the bill. I guess you need that.
Yeah, you need that.
Yep.
Right.
So they found that. most people were in favor of the bill. Psychologists that testified against the bill they wanted to cover behavior analysts. In 2017, they tried again, but then other fields were angry because they said ABA responsibilities overlapped with OT and SLP. Yeah. So that was a problem. We had to make sure that they were on our side. And then, finally, the Houston Chronicle wrote a story on the benefits of licensure and ABA. People started understanding what we were doing. And then, in April 2017, it was finally passed and sent to the governor, and he almost didn't sign it. But the public committee met with the governor, and then he signed it. So finally.
Wow.
From the 90s until 2017. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
So
it took that long.
Right? And it was like, is it going to happen? It's not going to happen. And the end of the article talks about the biggest lessons, and I think these are really applicable, is that it's really important to listen to others, address their concerns, and explain the benefits using this cost-benefit analysis, right? Like, we're not trying to steal your field.
Yeah.
We're not trying to take all the money, right? We really want to work collaboratively with other stakeholders, give them information. And sharing, they said that the storytelling aspect was really helpful because they shared stories of the benefits of ABA and the harm caused by those that were not credentialed. Mm-hmm. So long and tumultuous journey that probably no one thought of. Right? They're like, just get licensure already.
Right. What? Right. What's taking you so long?
Right. And that's what. That's why. But I just like that article because it really gets down and dirty. Okay, so let's take a short little break here. But before we do that, I want to give you your first secret code word. It is paper towel. You might use this to wipe up a spill. Paper towel. P-A-P-E-R space T-O-W-E-L. Paper towel. Have fun on your break. See you back in a minute. Hi. Do you want to be a BCBA, also known as a board-certified behavior analyst?
Sure, we all do.
Now you can come to Regis College in Weston, Massachusetts to get your graduate degree, just minutes outside of Boston.
Choose from any one of these courses.
Masters of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis.
Masters of Science in Special Education, dual degree in Special Ed and ABA.
Or be eligible for your postmaster certificate.
You can complete your degree and be ready to sit for the exam in 2 years.
And our 2022 graduates had a 92% pass rate on the BACB exam.
Come enjoy approved fieldwork placements, ethics mini handbooks, PhD levels professors, small class sizes, and a service trip to Iceland if interested.
And don't forget, our program is accredited by the Association of Behavior Analysis International, or ABAI, as a Tier 1 master's degree program.
Don't delay. Supplies are limited. Learn more at regiscollege.edu.
Again, that's www.regiscollege.edu.
regiscollege.edu.
One more time, www.regiscollege.edu.
See you there.
Bye.
Well, and that's like history that could be lost, you know, without having it summarized in this way. So I really appreciate that they took the time to write it up.
Yeah.
Because now everyone can read and see like, oh my. Right?
And the states that haven't started yet, they can realize it's going to be a long process. They probably already know that, though.
Well, some of the states that are not licensed currently have also been going through a process like this.
Similarly.
So I know that California and Florida, at the very least, both of them have had bills that have been put up and then haven't passed. And they probably have long sagas as well, because California and Florida are huge in terms of BCBAs. They have tons of BCBAs, tons of demand for BCBAs. So you know that someone has been working on this process there as well.
Surprising, actually.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it is not a similar type of story to you. And then, you know, from our experience in Massachusetts, there were also ups and downs in that whole process as well. And the initial version of the licensure bill that was passed was kind of like incomplete and had big loopholes in it where people could end up getting could get up getting licensed without being certified.
Oh, yeah. I remember that was a hot mess right there.
Yeah, yeah. And that has eventually been fixed, but it took years because everything moves like molasses through the legislative system. So it's definitely I feel like for every state, there's probably a drama, except maybe Tom Evans in Oklahoma.
Go to Oklahoma.
Right? Got it done.
He's like, guys, I know it. And everyone's like, okay, Tom.
Yeah.
We feel it.
Yeah. He's like, I'm on it. But probably everyone has a story to some degree that is like that. And that's just the process of getting it initially down where the governor signs it. Then after that, you have a big, long process of trying to upkeep the whole system. And so the article that I'm going to talk to you about is the Bourland et al. Article. And Bourland was on both of these.
Yes.
So he knows what he's talking about.
Bourland was on the public policy committee for the public policy, because all of the authors on the previous article that I reviewed were part of that committee.
Yes. Yeah. So this article talks about, I do love the title where they say, so you have behavior analytic licensure. Can't we just relax now?
Hair flip.
But sadly, the answer from the get in this article, they let us know that absolutely not. The answer is no. You cannot relax. You can never relax. Don't even think about relaxing. You must stay vigilant.
I mean, it makes sense.
To protect your state's licensure.
It does make sense.
Yeah, and it does. It does. So this article, it kind of walks through some of the same components that you just discussed, Jackie, in terms of like what the process is to get started, but then it continues on afterward. So this is extremely comprehensive in my mind of the overarching process. And then they also note that I meant to say earlier that there are other articles that focus on just how to get started with licensure that we didn't review.
Yeah.
So I know Gina Green has one, and there are probably 2 or 3 other ones out there as well that you could check out if you are in one of those states. Maybe you're in Idaho and you're like, we got to get on this to get started there. And then both APBA and ABAI have resources available as well for the certification process. So this article,
the licensure process.
I'm so sorry.
I know they're different.
I'm screwing it up.
It's okay. I got you.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Girl episode. Okay. So yeah, we have to monitor the laws. Any changes, we need to keep abreast of those potential changes so that we can be rallying, counteracting, speaking out, attending hearings, and acting on behalf of behavior analysts.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why those ABA state organizations are so critical.
Right.
Because you start to think, well, why do we all need a state organization?
It's why.
Because every state is different and has different rules and regulations. And whoever is monitoring at the state level, this is a huge part of what they are doing to protect their state's BCBA constituents. So it's really important roles. And that's why we should all join and support our state organizations as well, because they need our money in order to help oversee and, be our defenses, right? They're our Jedi defenses against anyone trying to break down our licensing laws.
We're lucky in Massachusetts. We have 2, Massaba and Babbitt.
We sure are. Yep. Okay. So the steps of the process, first, it is, like you've been describing, establishing those rules and regulations to get up off the ground. When the initial licensure law or statute is voted into place, it may just be like a rough outline. It might just say like, oh, yeah, behavior analysts need to be licensed. And I put my rubber stamp on it, right? And that's it. And then someone else has to actually go in there and figure out what does that mean?
Yeah.
And how is that going to happen? So specific rules and stipulations on how we're actually going to get people licensed is going to end up being fleshed out afterwards. So those regulations have to get drafted, they get reviewed, they get edited, then they finally will get finalized and approves. Who actually does the approval of all of that stuff varies state to state. Like we said, in Massachusetts, we're underneath the Department of Allied Mental Health and Human Services, but there's probably 41 different variations on what that is currently.
And Texas is under the Texas Medical Board.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't know who.
It's quite variable. Yeah. So sometimes the state laws actually oversee the licensure. Sometimes there is a licensing body that is formed that makes the laws themselves. So it varies and it takes years to implement and get off the ground. They also review in this article about opposition to this process, which again seems to vary state to state. Some states have had a lot of opposition to establishing licensure. Others really haven't. They talk about how often if there is opposition, it might be related to either misinformation about the field.
A lot of the time it's that, right?
Yeah. Or, as you already also noted, thinking that we should be underneath psychology. That's a big issue that kept coming up. And you kind of see why.
I do, yeah.
You know,
they're older than us.
Yeah.
Psychology is older.
Right. Like, you know, we are always like OT, PT, right? Aren't OT and PT the same thing? Turns out, no.
No, they're not.
Turns out they're not at all the same thing.
No.
Right? And they get totally different schooling and they work on different areas. And
I would be mad if an OT said, if I was an OT and someone said, just give me PT, I'd be like, no!
Exactly. Right? But that's not our area, so we could easily make that mistake. So someone else could easily be like, well, obviously, behavior analysts or psychologists, it sounds like they sure would be, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not exactly the same. But sometimes that can be part of the misunderstanding or figuring out where it's going to live, right? Our authors noted that if there's going to be like things written in there about who can practice behavior analysis, they say it would be better to have carefully worded exemptions, meaning in addition to behavior analysts, these other people can practice as behavior analysts, such as grandfathered in psychologists, right?
Mm-hmm. Do that in the Texas licensure as well. They had exemptions about public school employees.
Yeah.
And then people that were consulting outside to public schools inside. So they had some exemptions there too, but they laid them out specifically who can act.
Got it. Yeah, so they say that's really better than doing it the other way and saying, oh, you can only be a behavior analyst if you work with X population.
Oh, yeah, like New York. That's what New York did.
That's part of New York's issue. Mm-hmm. Because then our science of behavior analysis is not specific to application with one particular population.
Right.
And that shouldn't be written into the ways in which we can practice. So that's something that's noted. And then they talk about how we can work to, collaborate with others and help everyone become informed about what licensure would mean for behavior analysts. So if we want to be included in the development of the regulations, then we have to make ourselves known to the people who are going to be writing those regulations. Because guess what? They're not really behavior analysts.
Right, they're not.
Almost never of the time are they going to be behavior analysts or necessarily understand what it is that, the specifics of what it is that we do. So in order to help that process along, we need to be loud and say, hey, we're here and we're here to help you write these regulations so that they are the best that they could be. So there might be a licensing board or a state agency or an attorney representing the state who's actually going to flesh out these recommendations. So behavior analysts can ask to help participate in that process. There might be a board of professionals to provide input. So you got to follow the rules of the state. It's variable. Much. So it's hard to write specifics about it. You just need to know what your state does and how to be involved appropriately. You can't do it through some backdoor mechanism. You have to be appropriate. Yeah. And then they talk about the process, financial impact, and ethics as well, all need to be considered when you're thinking about the regulations.
Kind of a lot of money.
Yes, right?
Surprisingly, I thought it would be we're just creating this, but that's not really at all.
It turns out that's not.
No.
It's not cheap. And then you have to make decisions on how much is it going to cost to be licensed and maintain your licensure. And is that enough to support the price of the licensing body and whatever oversight that entails? You also don't want it to be exorbitantly expensive beyond what the average person in the field makes.
Yeah.
Right? So it has to be concomitant with the salary for the field, because otherwise people might not choose to practice in your state and would go to some other state. So that all has to get determined, right? And then the board or whatever is also going to need to decide about the ethics that will guide the licensure, the people that hold the license, very often they say, hey, this one that the BACB made looks pretty solid. Right. Let's just use that.
That's smart. But then what if the BACB does something crazy? They have to abide by that, right? So then they have to take that into consideration.
I suppose, right? But I don't think that's the case.
No.
Seems like, yeah. So many just use the BACB ethics code and say, hey, licensed behavior analyst, why don't you follow this? And then they're, done and dusted on that. But there might be other things as well. Like we just stated in our field, in Massachusetts, to be licensed, you also have to do some additional, it's like, sexual misconduct training, I think. Yeah. I did it, but now I forgot. But I believe that's what it was.
We have to do it every 2 years.
Yeah, I'll do it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know you will. I know you will.
So that, that is an additional requirement that Massachusetts decided to have. So other states might make decisions such as that then need to be followed. So if you are, both a certified behavior analyst and a licensed behavior analyst, you do have to monitor.
You do.
What are the expectations, right? Something that my article didn't touch on, but that is relevant is what is the continuing education requirements?
Right, because they're different.
For the state, right? For your license, it could be different. And it is a little bit different in Massachusetts.
Not much, but.
Right. But it could vary. So that's something you have to check on. And then for ours, it's like when my licensure is up, it's not the same as when my certification is up.
Mine is. It's the same.
Oh, lucky you.
Dreamy.
Mine is not.
I know.
So then I actually have to make sure that the CEs that I have gathered meet both requirements.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. So don't forget to check on these things, folks. So then after licensure is in place, so all of that was kind of like the pre-process, but it just, really in the weeds on that. And then after that, are you done? Are you done, Jackie?
Sadly, no.
Sorry, I caught you in the middle of your yawn.
But that's how we feel, right? We've done it. We're like,
oh, you're so tired.
We've done it. And then we're like, done. But no.
Yeah, I know. But no. So no, behavior analysts cannot rest on their laurels. Mm-mm. I don't know if I said that or the article said that, but I put it in here with an exclamation point.
Are laurels the thing on the back of the jackets? The tails?
No, they're like the Roman little crown that you wear.
Why would you sit back on that? It seems like it would hurt.
God, I don't know.
I'm gonna have to look that up later.
No, I'm looking it up right now.
Rest on your laurels. Isn't that funny though? I thought it was coattails.
It didn't work because I'm in Bing. I'm in Bing Maps.
You're such an old person.
Oh my God. Remember when I was trying to open my Apple Wallet? Yes. But I was actually just searching for wallets in Google. To rest on your laurels means to rely on past achievements. But where did it come from? Oh, here we go.
Oh, look, they're long. The laurels are long.
See?
They're long. So
the laurels are the leaves of the Laurus nobilis tree.
Oh, so they're long. So
that you make a laurel wreath from.
You would break them. Don't rest on your wreath.
Don't rest on your wreath. You wear it as a wreath. You cut the tree, you cut the branch, and you wear it as a wreath.
Okay. Well, you can't.
But don't rest on it, man.
Because you'll break it.
Okay. So, your licensure laws may need to be amended after implementation if some aspects do not work, as happened in Massachusetts.
Right.
That can take a long time.
Or if someone's sneaky deaky trying to come in and make an amendment that's not behavior analytic, right?
Yes. Yeah. They noted as well, Massachusetts got a shout out because we have been trying to move our licensure body out from underneath the allied mental health one, as it's not really terribly related, would have not been successful.
Nope.
Nevada had a similar situation. They were successful.
Good job, Nevada.
In theirs, but they got a head start because they started in 2009. So
that's true.
Yeah. So we need to be aware of any possible aspects of the law that could change and be ready just in case. It would be much to your benefit to have someone who's an expert behavior analyst on hand to explain to the legislatures what we do, why it would be beneficial for, whatever the regulations are to be maintained in said ways in order to upkeep the profession. So Bill Ahearn is like our guy for that, or he was during this whole process.
It's him, Candace Cador, and Ashley Williams.
Oh, there you go. Yep. Okay.
I know who they are.
Yeah. Hi, Candace. Hi, Ashley. And then they do note that even if you were like a known quantity to interact with the board, it can only happen during public meetings and hearings because otherwise it would be seen as, untoward that you're trying to contact people like behind closed doors. And there's actually a law for that called a sunshine law. Like everything has to happen in the sunshine.
It's cute. I wish that I made that up.
I know. I do like it as well. So this is going to require ongoing engagement with legislators and regulators, and monitoring of the licensure process and rules in your state. So being prepared to respond to any potential proposed changes. You can help with this as a behavior analyst by getting on email lists, registering for notifications. You can set up Google notification about any upcoming changes, right? And so that way you are abreast of the information and can be ready to participate as needed in, making flyers to say that we're different than psychology or whatever.
Doing storytelling.
Yeah. It's possible that there could be attempts made to change, like who can receive services, right? Or Medicare or Medicaid benefits as examples. Sometimes rules will start to be set up that contradict what is established state regulations, like by other types of accreditors, and that has to be monitored and corrected. Having people ready and available to, again, like provide expert testimony or personal stories of individuals who've benefited from the services is good. And so that is, again, what sort of your state association can help to manage and maintain.
Yeah, one person cannot do this alone.
Oh, no. Yeah. And then they also talk about the sunset provisions that you reviewed as well. So many states have rules built in that require the licensure program to be reviewed and reevaluated periodically. And the sunset provisions will automatically trigger the expiration of the regulatory board unless the legislature takes action to renew it beforehand.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I know. Stressful.
Right? Yeah. So you got to stay on it. And then they say, like, that is probably not really going to happen.
But you never know.
You never know. They say that total elimination based on the sunset provision is unlikely because this is like a helping license that works with vulnerable population. Right. So they would be
Can you imagine?
I know.
Oh my God. It would
be like, oops, we didn't do it. Oops.
Oops. None of you have jobs anymore.
Yep.
Oh,
so sorry.
Stressful.
They said, if you want to know, several states have some form of sunset provisions in your licensure. I'm going to tell you what those states are now.
Okay.
And Jackie, I'm going to read this as the table has it laid out.
Okay.
And they know that it is presented alphabetically from left to right. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington.
30.
Yeah, have some type of sunset provision.
It's almost everyone.
I want you to spot the error in what I just said.
Oh, no. Someone is probably out of order?
Mm-hmm.
Who is it? Oh, no. Oh, no. Is it? Is it Colorado and Connecticut?
No. It comes after Louisiana.
Oh! No. New Mexico? No. New York?
Well,
no.
It's all of them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they put the N's before the M's.
What do you mean? Oh, they did! That's hilarious.
Right?
Yep.
Because I was singing like the Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas. I was like singing the song and then I got to Louisiana and I was like, no states with M have sunset provisions? Oh, no, they do. They just put the N's first.
Oh, I wonder why.
I think it was just an accident. Probably. But I just love stuff like that, where it's like
nobody caught
all the reviewers are like, looks good.
That is true. I was like, I think I know how to spell, but I would have to go to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah, that's true.
This is one of my few talents, spotting stuff like this. So no big deal. I'm not picking on this article. Excellent article.
Yes, but there you go.
But just something funny that I noted.
Alphabetical error in table 3.
Yeah.
No, table 2.
Yeah. So, but you're right. 30 of the 41 have a sunset provision built in to their regulation. So that's something that those states need to monitor to make sure that they don't, whoopsies, just get shut down.
A day late.
Yeah. Okay. So finally, you know what? Let's pull into dissemination station. Well, we were almost there already, and then we just zoomed right on in.
We're there.
Yeah, so I just want to review these last few points here.
Sure.
From our Bourland article. They let us know the demand for BCBAs has increased in the last 12 years 5,852%.
That's a lot.
That's wild.
It is wild.
That's absolutely wild. Just from the year 2020 to 2021, there was a 38% increase. This is in demand, not in number of BCBAs. And they note that that increase is likely fueled, at least in part, by state insurance mandates.
Yep. And my article recommended that ABA grew in popularity after Catherine Maurice's book.
Yes, that was in 1993.
Yes, and that is when ABA kind of surged a little bit too, which prompted them to talk about licensure.
Yeah. So there's no evidence that demand is waning. In fact, it is increasing year over year. Mm-hmm. The number of BCBAs has also increased year over year, but not at a 5,000% rate of increase.
That's too many.
That's
a lot.
It is an increase, but there's likely going to continue to be a demand that outpaces the supply of behavior analysts. And as you know, we have talked about on other podcasts how important we feel it is that our field maintains a high level of quality of behavior analysts that we're outputting into the world.
Yes.
So we're not suggesting that there needs to be quicker ramp up of behavior analysts. I actually think the opposite. So this is going to be an ongoing problem. Therefore, it may be the case that states want to continue to regulate the field, and maybe those eventual other 10 states will also get licensed. It seems likely. Like I said, California and Florida are definitely in the process. Others are as well, but it's a long road and it can have a lot of bumps to it.
Like a very long road, right?
Yeah.
Years, 10 years.
They also just mentioned the idea of universal license recognition, where it's kind of like if you belong to one museum and then you get like museum reciprocity.
Like NARM.
Yeah, like NAR, like the National Association. I don't even know what it is.
Reciprocal museums.
Oh, yeah. It's a little bit like NARM, but for your licensing. They say that they don't know if we'll have like an official version of that, because a lot of states, like 20 states, already have it built in, where if you're licensed in one state,
that's nice,
then it will work in another. So that can also be part of the regulation. And check again. I didn't print out that list of which states have the reciprocal.
I don't know either. So you would want to check.
Yeah, but you might want to check it. But that is something else to think about.
Ooh, it's a lot to think about.
So it's hard for us to be like, here's all the legislative policy, because it truly does vary state to state. And then year to year, there's going to be different issues that crop up. Mm-hmm. And if you are, really in tune with all of this, and you may know about it for your own state, but there's just a lot of information with respect to this. To know it all would be very impressive.
Right, you wouldn't be able to. You'd have to have a massive spreadsheet.
Yeah. So I think mostly for the dissemination piece here is that this is important.
Very important for our field to keep moving forward in the way that it should.
Yes.
Right? Because we need to govern ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you'd never thought about this before, it might be worth going to check out. Mm-hmm. I would start at the BACB website.
Yeah, that's good.
Look at their cool map, and then find your state below, and then look up both of those components there, which is the licensure laws for your state, where you're going to find how to be licensed in your state, and the state ABA association.
Yeah, that's smart.
For your state. And then from there, you can get more information about what are what's currently going on. Are there issues that are up for debate? Are there aspects of your state's licensure laws that are being tested, right? Are there things that need to be done in order to ensure that everything continues to work smoothly? Mm-hmm. Do you have a sunset provision that's coming up that people need to be aware of, et cetera? So most of this information is going to happen at the state level. Yeah.
We're the only state with 2 professional associations.
Damn, Massachusetts. Okay. Anything else?
No. I think that's good. Thanks for making this for winning listener choice.
Oh. Yeah. Not me.
No, not
voters.
You. The voters chose it.
Yeah.
And I want to say everyone's like, this is not going to win. I'm like, it is. People are interested about preserving their jobs.
Yeah.
And this is how you do it.
Yeah. And set yourself up some Google alerts.
I have them on, they always come in, and hilariously, some of the things are like increasing rates for ambulatory services. And then I just delete those, but I always see if there's sneaky deaky ones coming in about behavior analysis.
Oh, you're so smart.
Yeah. I don't do anything, but I know that they're there.
Well, you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
You're ready. All right. And we are very fortunate to be joined today by Dr. Bill Ahearn, who's coming in to discuss licensure and legislative policy with us. Welcome, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Very nice to see you, Diana and Jackie.
You as well. Jackie's mostly going to talk because she is the one who created the questions. I guess you doctored them too, right?
Because I'm a doctor.
You're a doctor. So these questions have been all doctored up by Dr. Jackie, and she's going to take over asking you. But we have several questions that we think will be interesting to hear about the licensure process.
Yeah, and so you heard what Diane and I had already said about the articles, and so now we get some up-to-date information about what's happening like right now as of today. So Bill, can you tell us about the current state of licensure in Massachusetts as it is right now today in July 2026?
Sure, I can, but one of the things I need to start with, as the acting chair of the Allied Mental Health and Human Services Professions Board, I am not speaking on behalf of the board, but rather speaking as a private citizen to you and all the good people out there watching ABA Inside Track. So in terms of where we are right now, today, we happen to be undergoing a few changes that are being made primarily to update the rules and regulations relative to licensed mental health counselors, applications, and a junior level license for those folks. So when Charlie Baker was the governor, gives you an idea of how long ago this was enacted and the amount of time it's taken to put into effect. But there was a really nice mental health bill that was passed to attempt to make mental health services more widely available, particularly by mental health counselors. And a junior level license was made available so that folks prior to having their postmaster's supervised experience could start to practice and bill insurance with a junior level license. But there were a number of other changes that came with that. One of them was that professions on the Allied Mental Health and Human Services Professions Board are now represented proportionally. So that means instead of having 2 members of each profession, we now have the number of members that represent the proportion of the overall number of licensees under the board, which ended up increasing the number of mental health counselor seats to 5, I believe, and the applied behavior analyst member positions to 3. So we now have a 3rd member of the board that's a LABA. So it's myself, Ashley Williams, and someone who I don't know that you know who that is. It's Candace Cologne. Ever hear that name? So it was really great great to have Candace joining the board. And the importance of having multiple members is that these happen on a monthly basis, and not everybody can make every meeting. But if you have at least 1 or 2 representatives from the profession, the general operating procedure of the board is to defer to the professions when it comes to matters relating to the profession. So The mental health counselors are who we rely on when we have cases in front of us, or policies, procedures, or suggested changes to regulations. Those need to go to the mental health counselors. They're the experts in that area, just like the behavior and analysis cases, questions, rules, regulations should be going through the applied behavior analyst members. So that's actually a good change. One of the things that has still to take place is we've gone through the process of putting out the proposed regulations, receiving comments from the public. The governor's office's legal team has gone through all of that. We've made some adjustments relative to that input from the members of the public and have approved the changes, but that now needs to be approved by the governor's office before it takes place. It could have happened already this week. It is going to happen most likely within the next couple of weeks if it hasn't happened already. So that's a pretty exciting change. Some of the things that have changed, however, from the beginning would not be a bad thing to review. When the law first passed, we had to go through a period of time where we rolled out the policy and the regulations for promulgating the statute. And we had a number of folks sitting on a task force that included myself, the other original applied behavior analyst member, Mike Dorsey, Rick Graff, and blanking on who the public member was at the right now. So forgive me, I'll just blame my 12 concussions for not being able to remember names. But from that point in time on, it became the general procedure that to become a licensed applied behavior analyst, one needed to be either a BCBA, certified by the BACB, in good standing, or somebody that had been practicing in the profession for 5 years. And that was something that was sunsetting. That's not the term that they use, but we're going to avoid saying grandfathering. And when that change happened, there were a couple of tweaks and decisions that we needed to make to clarify some things that became fairly obvious that we needed to help so that applications could be done with fewer obstacles, deficiencies that we could help to prevent and provide clear guidance to folks. But we also ended up with some changes that needed to take place over time. The original ethics guidelines for the BACB for BCBAs was the guidelines for responsible conduct. And when it first came out, the guidelines were aspirational, but we needed to have an ethics code. And given that that was the one that was coming to us and was going to be starting within the next year, we had to use it before it was being widely used as no longer aspirational, but the rules that people were supposed to be following. So the ethics guidelines were updated, and we needed to update that particular change in terms of what's the ethics code that relates specifically to applied behavior analysts in Massachusetts. There are other ethics guidelines that apply to all professions, and some other stipulations that have changed over time. Both of you probably remember the point in time in which you renewed your license, in which you needed to go through the Massachusetts sexual harassment discrimination training. The domestic violence training, I think, is one of those things that was really important to get out to all professions, not just the health professions, but all occupations. So that became a new requirement. And in the grand scheme of things, some of the initial obstacles that we had in terms of moving applications along in a timely fashion were created by a couple of problems. One of them was that we had to hand review every application by looking at every single piece of paper. That was something that is pretty cumbersome when you have folks coming in once a month to take a stack of applications and go through all of them. So it was taking a month plus, up to 2 months, sometimes longer, to process somebody's application. We got to the point where we trained the board staff to do that without us being there. It was relatively easy. The staff they really liked the behavior analyst applications relative to the mental health applications because those are complicated with a lot of moving parts, and it's hard to figure out, did they meet all of these qualifications without having one of the mental health counselors take a look at the application. All of that became moot when the applications went electronic. So every application now needs to be done online. It makes it much more efficient. And the processing time for the LAVA applications is generally less than 2 weeks.
I've noticed that, actually. Yeah, it's been nice. I remember when I did mine, it was like 3 months.
Yeah, that was
a long, long time ago.
And it had to be sent in.
Right. Yeah, you had to paper it up, walk to the mailbox. But now I love the
It seems like so quaint, the idea of receiving something like an application in the mail.
There are still issues with the electronic applications and other aspects of the IT infrastructure that underlie a lot of the Massachusetts systems in the government, but that's not my problem to
Fair enough.
Right. Do you think there are still barriers that exist besides like the IT issues with licensure not being under like its own behavior analytic realm? Or do you think that we as a profession have worked peacefully with the other members in the Allied Mental Health Department?
Yeah, that's a good question. You actually give me an opportunity to talk about more than just, what are the tweaks that would be good to have. But I've come to appreciate the input of the other professions. Some of what we have as issues are relatively new for us because our profession has been regulated for a much shorter period of time. And particularly the mental health counselors have been around for a while. And what comes from their experiences oftentimes it's about what are good general practices for a professional when they're interacting with their clients that I found to be very helpful. I was one of the original folks attempting to have licensure, first stopped because it was a bad law, but then passed in a way that would make sense and be set up so that it's linked to our industry standards. One of the things that I was an advocate for was having an independent board. I'm much less concerned about that piece now, having worked with the other professions. The members of the public serve a very important role on the board as well. They're consumers of services, but they're not professionals that are related to those professions regulated by the board. So would it be good to have an independent board of behavior analysts? I think it's less critical now I think it's less critical. Other people might think it's critical than I originally thought it would be, given how things have operated, and that deferring to the experts from the professions when it comes to issues that are most, appropriately answered by those professionals are something that I'm no longer worried about because it all works in a way that you would hope it did. One of the things that would be an elimination of barriers is if we had, rather than a statute that names the BACB's criteria at one point in time, but to rather specifically talk about the BACB certification process and the credentials of the BCBAD, the BCBA, the RBT, the BCABA as those things that we just follow whatever it is the current guidelines are from the BACB, because then we wouldn't need to always be updating things whenever a change is made. And we expect there to be changes every 3 to 5 years. So that would just make things a lot more efficient. Massachusetts as a state is reluctant to name third-party entities. And I can understand that misgiving as well.
Yeah. So we've had licensure for quite a bit of time now. What do you think the advantages of licensure, what advantages do you think licensure has given us as behavior analysts in the state of Massachusetts?
Well, having licensure in Massachusetts was not necessary to be billing for those services. That's just the way that the law in Massachusetts was. You don't need to be a licensed individual to submit for insurance reimbursement, but it makes it a clearer pathway. It makes it easier for the professionals to advocate for reimbursement for their services in ways that really just aren't there's not as much teeth to that without there being a licensing mechanism.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that part is definitely helpful. One of the things that I think would be an important sort of context here is that that's just one aspect of what the licensing board does relative to providing protections for the types of services, giving you a title, and making sure that people that have that title have the minimal competencies to operate under it. But the practice of the profession itself needs disciplinary oversight. Our discipline, like any others, are prone to ethical violations, fraud, waste, and abuse in the services that are being provided. So when it comes to the function of the board, the main function of licensing boards is to protect the consuming public.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it provides this clear pathway for professionals to operate in a way that's matched to their competencies and experience, but also it is there as a mechanism so that when something isn't being done appropriately, then we can act and do something about that.
I like that. So what do you think in the next 5 years, how do you think licensure will change, or what do you think the next steps that are need to be taken to keep moving with licensure, right, and keep moving forward? What do you think we'll be doing?
Well, you need to be ever mindful of the fact that changes might be introduced. So sometimes those changes that people are introducing are intentional. Sometimes they're beneficial to the profession, and sometimes they're beneficial to the consuming public. Sometimes they're harmful to the profession. Sometimes they're harmful to the consuming public. I think that when we review some of the potential issues that have happened since I've been on the licensing board, that, it's important to maintain vigilance. One, and I believe this was an unintentional change by psychotherapists, was to give them a seat on the board of allied mental health and human services professions, but it would have substituted them in for behavior analysts, which would have meant that we no longer had licensure as applied behavior analysts. And it looked to me like it was just a poorly written proposed statute. So that was something that did not come to pass for a variety of reasons. Psychotherapists don't have their own licensing mechanism. And in Massachusetts, the vast majority of people that call themselves psychotherapists, however, are mental health counselors or, marriage and family therapists or the licensed psychologists.
That's interesting.
So those are some of the things. I've been in contact with a number of other states where there have been changes that were introduced and enacted without any of the stakeholders being aware of those changes. Mm-hmm. I got a call from your friend of mine, Mary Kay Carey, in Alabama one time. And the Alabama legislature had introduced a potential change. And it was hard to figure out who did it and whether or not it was a good thing or a bad thing. And the change was to actually remove a sunset clause. Sunsetting is when there's generally a review that either allows things to continue going or, removes that as part of the law. Mm-hmm. And that actually is a good thing, you would imagine. But why weren't they interacting with the behavior analysts on the ground in Alabama? Interestingly, Alabama's had a pretty long history of behavior analysts. Auburn University, folks know the Jim Johnston and the master's program that he founded there, and has been carried out by many really high-quality behavior analysts over the years. You would want input from all of those people, you would hope, but sometimes legislators see something that they would like to change. And in some states, you don't have to inform the public when you're going to make those changes, or you can inform the public in ways that nobody knows what's going on, like putting it as an advertisement in, the Birmingham News so that nobody ever sees it.
Okay. Well, interesting. I think our final question for you is what we've been dying to know personally, Diane and I. Like, what was it like going through the process of licensure? Like, what was your experience? Us knowing you're not a policymaker, right? You're a behavior analyst. So, like, how did that feel going through it? And like, just that, what was your experience like?
Well, from the standpoint of getting a bill passed into law and that law being promulgated into regulations and the supporting policies for that, it was quite the learning process. The board staff, the board's counsel, the executive director, at the time was Aaron LaBelle, were very helpful when it came to understanding what we could and couldn't do, the importance of how the wording, the difference between, a comma and an and can have really important consequences. So that was very educative. In that particular time, I had to go through licensing myself. When it came to me qualifying for the BCBA, I'm actually not a trained applied behavior analyst. I've had absolutely zero coursework in applied behavior analysis.
You've taught a lot of it, though.
I've taught a lot. But my way in was that I had experience, and I'd been experienced with supervision by experts. My postdoctoral fellowship at the Kennedy Krieger Institute under a variety of folks, Wayne Fisher, Kathleen Piazza, Lynn Bowman, Louis Agopian, was super formative in terms of very much so. I maintain, pretty close relationship still with Louis Agopian. Just as a sidebar, my favorite behavior analyst brewer out there. If you ever run into Louis, ask him for what his current Lou's Brews offering is. It's usually pretty good. But at that point in time, I then went and did pediatric feeding work under the supervision of a behavior analyst and other professionals. And that was really a great experience. I enjoyed working with the other professions, the pediatric gastroenterologist, the nursing staff, the physician's assistant, the speech and language pathologist with the dysphagia expertise, an OT who really was great at working with those kids with motor impairments to make good progress with kids feeding. But I felt that was not rounding out my applied behavior analyst credentials. So that's kind of what led me to the New England Center, where I could work with more behavior analytic colleagues. And from that point in time on, I had really gathered enough experience in terms of what it is to be a practicing applied behavior analyst, and had published enough that I was able to document my experience and sit for the exam. All of that part was easy, right? When it comes to the filling out of the licensing exam at that point in time, it was a relatively rigorous process. It has become a lot easier. In fact, one of the things that the board staff have come to realize is that when somebody submits information saying that they're a BCBA in good standing, for example, they can just log onto the BACB's website, check out the certificate number, make sure they're in good standing, that, they have no discipline on their record. And it's one of those things that has gone from being a fairly lengthy and difficult process to being fairly straightforward. So there's an awful lot that comes with the licensing entity being around for a while. efficiency is the main outcome. But when it comes to licensure, from the perspective of what I do, it doesn't mean a goddamn thing to what I do on a day-to-day basis. I don't provide insurance reimbursed services. In fact, I provide very little when it comes to service delivery. Most of the work that I do, as you guys know, is training other people to be practitioners. I do consult on cases that generally relate to the research expertise that I have. And it is something that, in terms of the amount of time and energy, it really doesn't pay off as much for me as it necessarily would if I was doing those things. But it was very important from my perspective that we have a good law that was going to set our profession out in the right direction and be sustainable over time, so that you guys can go out there and practice as professionals and have the protections of the law that are there, and the consuming public will also have those same benefits.
Well, I can say we thank you for that.
Oh, you know what? I just thought about one thing that I thought one of your questions was about obstacles, one of the challenges.
Sure.
So definitely anchoring the criteria to the BACB's criteria. The credential would get you your in for licensure as long as you pass your background check and all of the other aspects that come with a state-sanctioned license. The way things are right now, it's actually harder for someone with much more experience that didn't go through a verified course sequence to prove that they have the right credentials. Somebody that is like myself, I couldn't become licensed at this point in time. And there are many other behavior analysts out there that are practicing with a great deal of expertise that would also have difficulty documenting their experience. That's another sort of challenge that is sometimes difficult to navigate, but that anchoring to the BACB's criteria would solve that problem.
Neat. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Bill, and sharing your expertise about legislation. I know that I was really fascinated by it, and our listeners have asked for this. This was a listener choice, so we're so thankful that you are here. Thanks so much.
And guess what? Next time you get to ask somebody that's not me. You can bring on Ashley, or you could bring on Candace.
That's right.
It might bring you more audience members.
And we very much appreciate you and your expertise and all the work that you did in getting licensure up and running in Massachusetts. I know that it was like a long running saga that we were,
well, it's
running parallel to you during that time.
Right. It's never just one person. It takes everybody working together for that to come to pass. So thanks to everybody that put in their time and energy to get licensure passed in Massachusetts too.
Woohoo. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to tell you about the last part of the show, which is pairings. Da-da-da-da! Pairings is the part of the show where I mention past episodes you might want to check out if you found this one of interest. Now, I already said we've never talked about this topic before, but there are a few that are related to some degree. So I'm going to tell you about those. First of all, we have episode 274, where we talked about ABA and public policy. Remember that one?
Yep, I do.
Yep.
It was an article by Ashley Williams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Coop and Ice. I remember that. Yeah. So that's a good one to go back and check out. It touches on some similar topics. We also have 2 episodes that have reviewed some of the history of ABA and as it could relate to this process. In episode 100, we talked about the history of ABA with Dr. Gina Green. And in episode 250, we talked about the history of ABA and psychology with Dr. Murari El-Koro. So you can check both of those out. And then in episode 233, we discussed developing a standard set for autism outcomes with Dr. Ivy Chong.
That was good.
Yeah. So it was a different thing that they were looking to do in that episode, but it also involved a lot of brainstorming, regulation building, evaluation, etc., in order to finally produce this, guidance document, basically. And there's a really interesting sort of story about how all of that went down. So you could check that out too. Finally, I like to recommend a snack as part of our pairings episode. And today I'm just going to recommend this beautiful iced latte that Jackie brought me
yummy.
When she came over for our girls pod today. So it's an iced latte. It has sugar-free s'mores flavor and a little bit of cream in there. And if you ever need to buy me an iced coffee, this is the one.
Boom.
Yeah. So thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome.
And that was Pairings. Please enjoy. All right. We did it. And that's our show.
Except I want to give you the last code word.
Oh, okay, sure.
The last code word is warning.
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 If you're listening.
Thanks, Jackie.
Continuing education credits.
Yeah, exactly.
You need that episode. I mean, you need that word.
You need that code word. So if you want to get CEs for this episode, you can click the link in your podcast player, or you can go to our website, which is www.abainsidetrack.com. There you will look for this episode. Either it'll be right on the front page or you can search for it. There, you will see all the materials. You can listen to it there, or you can click the complete and continue button if you listened elsewhere. There's also going to be transcripts and some follow-along notes to go with. At the end, there's a content quiz on content, and also we'll have the code words in the quiz. You complete the quiz, and then you will get your CEU downloaded right from there.
And Diana doesn't even have to make them anymore.
I know. It's really amazing. So please check out our new pretty website, and you can put in the second Scibak code word, which is warning. Warning. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode. Thank you, Jackie, for joining me today.
Girl pod. We do miss you, Rob.
I know. Yeah, I'm not nearly as good at this as Rob is, but we made it work. Thank you to Dan Thabit of the Podcast Doctors for editing our episode. Thank you to Jim Carr for recording our intro music, and for Kyle Sturry to recording our interstitial music. Thank you to everyone for listening to the show. Thank you most of all to Rob for doing all of the background work. He never gets credit for all the work that he does. He does so much work for us. Yeah, but he is going to listen to this because he has to.
Yeah.
And so he'll hopefully hear us saying that we appreciate him and we appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. You can always email us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com, and we'll see you next week. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
Bye.